Grouper Moon 2025. This is our first live stream of the year. My name's Todd Bohannon. I'm an educator with Reef, and I'm going to introduce you guys to a couple of scientists here on the Grouper Moon project, and then we're going to go underwater and look at some amazing fish. So hold on one second. I'm going to pass the microphone on to Dr. Bryce Simmons, who's going to talk a little bit about where we are for today's dive.
Hi, everybody. I've got my ears in now. I hope everybody's doing great. It's good to see everybody out there. Big wave to all. Everybody give me a okay, I got the wave. I got the wave. You guys are awesome. Yeah, so welcome to the live feed. Here we are. I'm so glad we could all get together and do a little dive together. So we are on Bloody Bay Wall in Little Cayman. The reason we're here on Bloody Bay as opposed to out at the aggregation site is because things have been super weird. We've had a whole bunch of fish swimming all around the island, lots of them looking big and pregnant, ready to go, but we haven't seen a ton of fish out at the aggregation site, and we don't know what's going on. So part of our work today is to go dive on Bloody Bay Wall and see if we can find some of those big, fat, really ready to go fish and figure out what the heck is going on. So it's kind of amazing. It's one of those things with biology, right? We think we have the system totally worked out, and then stuff changes. So what would yeah, normally what we would expect to see is many, many thousands of fish right out at the very western end of Little Cayman Island, and also many thousands of fish on the eastern end of Cayman Brac. And while we've been looking on the west end of Little Cayman, where we would normally expect to see them, we've only found a few hundred fish. Now, that's a lot of fish, but it's not the many thousands we would expect to find at this point in time. And so we're here on Bloody Bay because we've gotten reports from local divers that suggest that there are lots of fish right here on Bloody Bay Wall. This is one of the premier dive sites in the Cayman Islands. Beautiful location, lots of fish, lots of corals, beautiful sponges, and hopefully a bunch of Nassau grouper as well. Yeah.
All right, everybody. So right now, Dr. Simmons, who you just met, is going to be putting on he's got a special, it's called an AGA face mask, because he's going to be diving and talking to you at the same time. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen divers before, but usually a diver will have a regulator in their mouth to breathe. But in order to talk and film underwater, we have a special AGA face mask so that he can talk to you guys. He's going to get all of that gear on right now, and I'm actually uh, we're gonna we're gonna switch over to the underwater camera in just a minute so that you can see everything that's going on out here. Um, one second. All right. So yeah, I'm going to reiterate a little bit about what Dr. Simmons just said. You know, this is my 14th year coming on the Grouper Moon project, and as you know, the groupers spawn at the full moon and the winter full moon. And usually, when we get here, there's thousands of fish out at the aggregation site, but they're not there yet. We don't know what's going on. This is the first time it's happened. So we're checking all over dive sites all over the island to see if they may have moved somewhere or what's changing, um, which is kind of exciting. You know that there's so much that we still don't know about the life of these Nassau and the spawning time. So right now, I'm going to switch the camera to an underwater camera so that you guys can see where we're at. So give me a second, and I'm going to try switching us over. Okay, now can you guys hear me? Yes, thank you. It was mute. All right. So, I'm going to take you guys off the screen just for a little bit so that you guys can see what's going on underneath the boat. Okay. All right, so here we are under the boat. All the divers are getting down underwater right now to take you out onto Bloody Bay Wall. And and so now you can see Dr. Simmons has just gotten into the water right there underneath the boat.
Okay, hi everybody. Todd, can you hear me up top?
I can hear you great. Hey guys, can you hear Bryce? Go ahead and say something, Bryce.
Hi everybody. Here we are. Under the deep briny blue here on Bloody Bay Wall, a site called Mixing Bowl.
All right, awesome. That sounds great, Bryce.
Okay. We're just now we're underneath the boat. So I just jumped in off the boat, and I got Tom here, and I got dive guys up above that are holding on to our lines and making sure we don't get tangled on things. So we got several divers in the water with us here today. That's Dr. Christy Pattengill Simmons with the Reef Environmental Education Foundation. Okay, so let's head out towards the wall and see what we can find in terms of, well, NASA grouper or anything else that might be of interest to you guys.
Wonderful, Bryce. The picture quality looks great.
Oh, super duper. So, we are on a coral reef. And in fact, the islands that you all live on are in part built from coral reefs, built from the ocean. Coral reefs themselves have been around for a really long time. Corals, in fact, were around about 250 million years ago. That's an amazingly long window of time when you consider that, let's say, humans have been on this planet only about 3 million years. The corals have been around a long, long time. Now, I'm going to show you a couple examples of coral. Here's a coral right here. We've got braid coral over there, but coral are really cool. And the reason they're cool is you might think they're a plant, right?
Right.
They are not. They are animals. They're related to things like sea anemones and jellyfish. But what's really cool about them is that inside their body, they have things called zooxanthellae, and those are basically cells that can take sunlight and turn it into energy. So not only are they like a jellyfish and they've got a polyp and they can catch creatures and eat them,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they can take sunlight and turn it into energy.
What kind of a relationship is that, Bryce?
Yeah, that's a great question, Todd. That is called symbiosis. It's a symbiotic relationship. Two animals working together to make things go. Let's say here's a braid coral, right? So this is not just one animal. This is many, many thousands of animals that are all clones of each other. It's all the same animal that has produced more individuals from itself. It's cloned itself. And through that process, plus building its structure with calcium, it grows into what you see here. And it's covered with these clones of the same animal.
Wow. Now, what's swaying there beside the corals? I see there's are those sea fans?
Yeah, these are sea fans.
Okay.
Also not a plant. Kind of looks like a plant, right?
Right.
Also an animal. Yeah. So these guys, just like corals, do some filter feeding. So as they're swaying back and forth.
Oh, hold on. We just lost our video.
Okay.
Video just turned off.
Okay. Tom's working on it.
Okay. Hold on, you guys. This is a reality of doing doing science out in the field. There we go. We're back on.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
All right, so these types of soft corals, like sea fans, these are animals as well. They filter feed. So all of the little particles, the little bits of things in the water, these guys are able to take out and eat. Now, I don't know, Todd, you said that the visibility, the image quality is pretty good,
It
right?
is great, yeah. And we can see pretty far.
Okay, that's awesome. Are you seeing the fish on the reef? Are the kids seeing their fish?
Not yet.
Okay, there are lots and lots of different little fish that are all around the reefs. We got some parrotfish here. Lots of herbivores is what I'm seeing.
And what are herbivores?
Herbivores are a type of fish that eats algae. So, if you look down here, look at this area right here. This is a coral. Right here, that's a coral. But all over here, that's algae. The fleshy stuff, those are plants.
Okay.
And coral and algae compete for space. They're in a constant battle. And if there wasn't things around to eat the algae, like herbivores, the algae would win. It's better at growing fast.
Hey, Bryce, we see a diver behind you over there. What's going on over there?
Yeah, so those are two of our colleagues. That's Dr. Scott Happel and Jack Elsner. Jack Elsner is a graduate student at Scripps Oceanography. Scott Happel, Dr. Happel, he's collecting stereo video data. So he's got two GoPros that are filming at the same time. And we can take the images from that GoPro and we can use them to estimate the size of fish. So we can capture length data from fish. And that's really useful information for understanding how much fish and how much biomass, or the total amount of fish in like, let's say, weight is on the reef. And it works just like our two eyes. So we have two cameras that are overlapping in their field of view, and that gives it depth perception, the ability to tell how far away a fish is from the camera.
So it's almost like it's giving you a three-dimensional image.
Absolutely. Yep. That's why we got two eyes rather than one. Because we can get that stereo video, that depth perception from those.
Hey, Bryce and Tom, we are near the end of the video cable.
Got it. Okay. Let's see if we can go down here a little bit. We're going to turn down.
Yeah, if you could turn right a little bit was what Croy was suggesting.
All right, we'll do that. We're gonna come down there and you go up. Okay.
And there I see Dr. Pattengill Simmons out there helping you with the live stream, who's also one of the primary scientists on the project.
Absolutely. Here is an example of an herbivore. We were talking before about herbivores. This is a blue tang. The blue tang is a type of surgeonfish. And you might wonder why he's not running away from me right now.
Oh yeah, we see him really well now.
Yeah, well, the reason he's not running away is because he's getting cleaned. There's a little cleaning goby that's on that coral head. And so the surgeonfish is hanging out. He's tilted up slightly. And the reason he's tilted up slightly is he's letting the cleaning goby know, hey, I'm ready for service. There he goes, and you can see the cleaning goby there, maybe? See that guy?
Yeah, we can see him, and was that a tiger grouper that just went behind?
I don't know.
All right. So what else are you seeing out there, Bryce?
Let me see if I can get this guy to clean me. Nope, he's not interested. All right, let's see. Sometimes they can actually clean your hands. It's like getting a manicure. Nope, there's a stoplight parrotfish here. These guys are the workhorses of the reef. They're the big herbivores. Those are the ones that do all the algal cleaning to make room for the baby corals to show up. You know what I'm seeing a lot of, Todd?
What?
I'm seeing a lot of sponges.
Now, what is a sponge, Bryce?
Yeah, so a sponge is an ancient animal. And again, not a plant, an animal. And it doesn't have things like a gut or a central nervous system. And I said that corals have been around a long time, and I said 250 million years. Sponges have been on this planet more like 600 million years. They're ancient animals. And what they do is they filter water. So, yeah, here's an example of a tube sponge. It's an unassuming creature, right?
Right.
Not that impressive, but what this thing does is it will filter many, many hundreds of gallons of seawater over a day, let's say, or a couple of days. And by filtering that seawater, it cleans it. It cleans the water, and it keeps the reef clean, and it processes nutrients, and it keeps the reef functioning. So they're very important. They play an important role on our reefs.
So, Bryce, are those the same sponges that you might use in your kitchen when you're cleaning the dishes?
No. Long ago, it used to be so.
I see.
So, long ago, they would take these and they would dry them in the skeletons that our result would be used for sponges. But in a modern context, no. Fortunately, we don't pull these animals for the reef to keep our dishes clean.
So have we seen any NASA yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
We'll keep looking here. I gotta be honest, I was expecting to see a bunch. And that's the thing about biology, Todd. Sometimes it can be really unpredictable, and that's what makes this kind of science so interesting, is just when you think we got the whole thing worked out, it throws you a curveball, and you're like, I don't know why we're seeing what we're seeing, but it makes you want to try and figure it out.
Exactly.
We've had a lot of hypotheses here. People have been thinking, hey, the Cayman Islands, there was just an earthquake.
That's right, last weekend.
Maybe that was it. I don't know about that. I'm not sure, but anything's possible, and with science, you can't just ignore a hypothesis. A hypothesis just is. And we have to do our best to evaluate a given hypothesis, whether or not we think it's unlikely to be true. So, who knows? Maybe it was the earthquake.
A hypothesis is just like an educated guess, right?
Absolutely. It's an educated guess. And then, as scientists, we do work to try and figure out whether or not that educated guess is supported by data, is supported by our observations. We go out into the world and we collect data and evaluate our hypothesis based on those data.
So normally, like you said, when we would get here at this time of the year, we would see thousands of NASA at the aggregation site. But you guys have been going out there every day, and you haven't seen very many at all. Is that right?
That's right. We've only seen a couple hundred out there, max. And this time of year, we should be seeing many, many thousands of them.
So this is a big mystery, you guys.
Huge.
And I encourage all of you guys to be thinking of your own theories, your own guesses of what's going on and where those NASA are.
Yeah, maybe there's some questions out there we could try and help answer while we're down here.
Awesome. So if any of the classrooms have some questions, you guys are teachers, you're welcome to type them into the private chat. The private chat is on the right side of your screen. And if you type in a question, I'd be happy to answer. And it looks like we have a question from the internet. This is someone on Little Cayman is saying, have the groupers started to congregate?
Yeah, so we've been talking about that a little bit. We've started to see some out at the aggregation site this month, but not nearly as many as we should be seeing, and that's the interesting part about this, is why aren't they there? I tell you what, we were just talking about how it's important to collect data and evaluate hypotheses, right?
Right.
Well, man, I was expecting to see a whole bunch of fish down here on this dive, and we haven't seen a single NASA grouper. Which suggests to me that they are somewhere, they've gone somewhere to reproduce. Maybe they are starting to aggregate out at that site now. It's just interesting. It's such a crazy thing that we spend so many years studying this animal.
Okay, Bryce, we have a couple of questions coming in.
Yeah, please go.
From CIS, the question is, or Cayman International School, how many types of grouper are there?
Oh, good question. I'm not 100% sure, but if I was to make a guess, I'd say somewhere in the ballpark of about 100 to 200 species of grouper. And coral reefs in general, there's about 4,000 to 5,000 species of fish. So, grouper are not by any means the most diverse type of fish that's out there. And in part that's because they're high on the food chain. So they're big predators by and large. And you don't typically see as much diversity on the top levels of a food chain.
What type of groupers do we see here on Little Cayman?
Here on Little Cayman, the big ones that we see is, of course, Nassau grouper.
Right.
Sometimes, but pretty rarely, Goliath grouper. Those are the big ones.
Right.
They can get up to 500-600 pounds. Yellowfin grouper, black grouper, red hind, and coney. Those are the common grouper that we see here.
Okay, Bryce, we have another question from Island Primary.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the grouper spawn?
Oh, yeah. Sure have. Not this year, at least not yet.
Not yet. But we're hoping, you guys. Fingers crossed, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and every year, the last decade, every year we've managed to get down here and work with the Cayman Islands government, the scientists with the Cayman Islands Department of Environment to capture information during the spawning event, when those fish are out there releasing their eggs.
Bryce, we have another question from CIS, from Miss Christie and Miss Susie's class. How big are Nassau groupers normally?
Nassau grouper can get to be about a meter in length, so about that big.
Okay.
And about, let's say, 22 to 25 kilograms. What is that, about 50, 60, 70 pounds?
Yeah.
Here, look at this. We got a little baby Nassau grouper there.
Oh, we see him.
Yeah.
Now that would be more of a juvenile, right?
Absolutely. So that guy is probably only about 3 or 4 years old.
Well, we're seeing a lot of fish now out there, Bryce.
Yeah. Yep. Those guys up there in the water column you're seeing milling around, those are planktivores. They're plankton pickers.
Okay, we have another question from Miss Gale's class. What is the biggest grouper so far?
Like a biggest Nassau grouper or biggest species of grouper?
Maybe let's say both.
Okay. I think the biggest Nassau grouper that we've managed to measure out on the west end of Little Cayman or on the east end of Cayman Brac across those two aggregations is about 90 to 95 centimeters, I think. So close to a meter in length. Probably in the ballpark of 50 to 60 pounds. Look at this Nassau grouper here. Right here he's getting clean. So remember talking before about cleaning
station. Now why do fish go to a cleaning station, Bryce?
Yeah, so
oh, we see him now, you guys. Can you see he's right there in the middle of your screen, hanging out there, yeah? That's our first adult Nassau.
Yeah, so this guy, I'm not sure that this guy is reproductive yet. In other words, he's still pretty small.
Okay.
And a fish this size still probably isn't going to the spawning aggregation yet. So he's probably a year away from going out to the spawning aggregation.
Okay, got it. Now, we have another question from Spot Bay. How come there aren't many grouper in the daytime?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it is the case that Nassau grouper and a lot of species of grouper are crepuscular. They tend to have the most activity right at dawn and dusk when it's at twilight.
I see.
And so during the day, it's not all that easy to find them because they tend to be resting and relaxing. We think they're most active during that crepuscular window of time at dawn and dusk because it's the sweet spot where it's just dark enough that their prey have a hard time seeing them, but it's also light enough that they can see their prey.
Okay, so we've got another question.
Yeah.
Are Nassau grouper a carnivore or a herbivore?
They are a carnivore. They are animal eaters. They'll eat crabs and crustaceans and other fish. They're predators. They're at the higher end of the food chain, and that makes them important to the reef because they keep food chain below them in check and in balance. So it's important to have large predators on Caribbean reefs.
Awesome. We have another question from CIS, from Miss Christie and Miss Susie's class. How do Nassau grouper know where to go when they spawn?
Wonderful question. Man, I wish I knew the answer. We've been trying to figure that out for a long time. It's an open question in science, and this is why science is a great thing to do. When you grow up, always there are questions to answer, and one of them is, why is it that they go where they go in order to reproduce? We think that they have picked locations, or they go to locations that are particularly good for keeping eggs that they let out into the water stay close to home, so that they end up back on the reefs. And we think this because we've actually tracked the eggs over time after they've been released. But that's just a guess at this point. We haven't proven that that's true. And it's a really, really important question, because it's not just Nassau grouper that go out to that west end site on Little Cayman or east end site on Cayman Brac. It's all kinds of species, both big and small. Lots of different species of grouper, jacks, ocean triggerfish. They're all out there reproducing. So there's something about that site that's important, and we're not sure what it is yet.
Awesome. We have another question from Island Primary. How long does it usually take for the grouper to spawn?
Usually about 3 to 8 or 9 days after the full moon, they'll reproduce. So they'll arrive around the full moon, usually. Now this year's weird, right? But usually they'll arrive around the full moon, and the last couple of years, within about 6 days, they're all done. They've headed back to their home reefs. So anywhere from, let's say, 5 days to a week and a half.
Okay.
And then they don't reproduce the rest of the year. That's it.
Just
That's
the
the
one
whole
time a
year's
year.
reproduction and that one window of time, and they release their eggs over a couple of different nights, and that's it. So that's why that window of time is so important. Because if you disrupt that one spawning period of time by fishing, for instance, that all of the reproduction for that entire year is canceled.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it is very important that they have this opportunity to spawn.
Yeah.
Bryce, we have another question from CIS, and the question is, why are groupers so special?
Why are groupers so special? Well, I'd say 3 reasons.
Okay.
1, people like to eat them. And so it's important that we have grouper on reefs so that they're there for people to catch, because people like that. 2, they're important because people like to see grouper. They're beautiful. They are what a lot of people think of when they think of a wild animal on a reef. So seeing a grouper, to a lot of people, suggests that the reef is healthy and wild, and that's valuable. And then the last thing is, ecologically, grouper are very important because they play a key role in Caribbean coral reefs and maintaining healthy balance.
Awesome. Bryce, we have another question from Spot Bay, which is, how deep are you in the water right now?
Say again?
How deep are you in the water right now?
Gosh, only about 15 feet. Pretty
Okay.
shallow.
Awesome.
That ledge that I was just on, that drops off to hundreds, maybe thousands of feet. That's one of the cool things about Bloody Bay Wall, because it starts real shallow like we're here. You could easily free dive with a snorkel down and touch the bottom here. Just over that ledge, no way. It goes way deeper than any diver could ever go.
Okay, we have another question from Spot Bay, and the question is, why are Nassau groupers named Nassau groupers?
Good question. I'm not sure the answer, but I would guess that they're named Nassau grouper because some of the largest fisheries for the species, where most of them have been caught, is in the Bahamas, and probably a lot of those fish were processed in Nassau, in the Bahamas, and that's probably why. That's a guess, though. I'm not sure of the answer to that. It's a good question.
Okay. We have a question from Island Primary. How many grouper are tagged each year?
In the years past, we've tagged about 100 to 125 individuals. And we use those tags to help us estimate the population size. This year we haven't tagged any. And the reason why is because rather than tagging them, we're now starting to use facial recognition. So we capture images of fish, and then we use software to recognize the same individual across multiple pictures. Just like your phone. If you hold up your phone,
Right.
it'll recognize your face. Natural markings, which is really cool.
So does that mean that each Nassau's face is unique and different?
Yeah, just like you and me, Todd.
Wow.
Yeah, we can tell the individuals apart just by the way they look. Now sometimes it's obvious because they'll have a hook scar or we had a fish, we used to call him Lucky.
Yeah.
And he had a giant shark bite out of the back. Like, you looked at him and you're like, how are you still alive? Because he had this huge divot out of his back.
Right.
But it had completely healed over.
And he kept showing up at the spawning
And
site.
he kept showing up year after year, so we called him Lucky.
I'll post that picture for you guys on the blog so that you can see what Lucky looks like. We have another question from Edna Moyle Primary School, which is, how long have you been doing the Grouper Moon project?
We've been doing the Grouper Moon project since around 2001. It started with the Cayman Islands Department of Environment and some scientists with the Reef Environmental Education Foundation. And to this day, those two entities have been a key part of the Grouper Moon project. They are the groups that run the program and design the science to help the Cayman Islands government manage for healthy stocks of grouper species here on Little Cayman and Cayman Brac and even Grand Cayman.
Okay. We have another question from CIS. What predators do grouper have to watch out for?
Well, sharks.
Yep.
Sharks is a big one. We see sharks out there on the aggregation site all of the time. And we've seen sharks eat grouper at the aggregation site. So it's a pretty common occurrence. They'll usually attack the grouper as they're going up to release their eggs. We don't usually have to worry about the sharks ourselves as divers because they're not there for us. But I'll tell you, it's a little spooky sometimes when it gets dark out there.
Right.
And you know they're sharks. And you see the sharks, and all of a sudden, you can't see the sharks anymore. And you're just wondering, is that shark behind me?
Right.
Fortunately, we haven't had any problems.
So, Bryce, we have another question. Can I say
Yeah.
that? Which is, how many eggs does a female lay at one spawning season?
A big female can lay upwards of a couple million eggs.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot.
Wow.
And you know what's amazing about that?
What?
If just one of those eggs survive, across any number of the years that that female has reproduced on average, you can maintain a population. If even two of those eggs survive, you're doubling that population over time.
Wow.
So the vast majority of those eggs never survive to any form of adulthood. So it's a long, long shot for any given egg to become an adult.
Okay, we have another question from Edna Moyle Primary School, and the question is, what is a grouper's diet made up of?
Yeah, lots of different things. Nassau grouper are generalist predators, which means they eat lots of different things. They are carnivores, though, so it's things like crustaceans and crabs, lobster, lots of fish. Most of their diet is probably fish. They do eat lionfish, actually. That's one of the things that it's important we have Nassau grouper around for, is they are important for controlling the invasive lionfish population.
Okay, we have another question from Miss Collins' class. Are there any fire corals in the area we're diving now?
There are, yeah. Not as much as there used to be by any stretch.
Okay.
I'm just looking for some right now, actually, to point it out. Well, and I'm not seeing any right here, but we do see it from time to time. And you don't want to touch it, my friends. It can be very stingy.
Yep, I have done that myself.
Yeah.
We have another question from Miss Gale's class, which is, how deep is Bloody Bay Wall?
Right off the low edge itself, I'm going to point out our NASA grouper we're just spotted up here. Thanks to our trusty dive guides that are surrounding us. It might look like there's only a few of us in the water, but we got a lot of people helping us out here for safety. Here is what I am positive is a reproductively active NASA grouper. So here's a grouper that should be out on the spawning site, and he is not. Again, he's sitting still because he's getting cleaned right where he is. You see the bars and the stripes on that fish, Tom?
Yes.
So they are expert at changing their color to suit their habitat. They take on this bar pattern to blend in with the reef. And it helps them to stay camouflaged so that they can avoid being seen by the creatures that they're about to eat. Now he's letting Tom get really close to him right now because he's getting cleaned.
That's wonderful.
And he doesn't want to leave his cleaning station. By cleaning station, we talked a little bit about it. Like you and me, NASA grouper can get parasites or little creatures that live on them. And sometimes they're annoying, right?
Right.
So these cleaning stations, they pull up to, and they present in a particular way that the gobies know that they're there to be cleaned, and these little gobies, these little fish, will jump onto the NASA grouper and start picking off parasites and dead pieces of skin and tissue and just give them a good once-over. It's like going to a car wash.
Wow, that's amazing, Bryce. We have another question from Island Primary. Where do the groupers go after they spawn?
Right back here, right back to their home reef. Yeah, so all fish from all around the island will go out to the west end, and they'll reproduce there, they'll spawn there, and then they'll head straight back to their home reef, to where they came from, and that's where they'll spend the rest of their time, on their home reef. So every single reproductive aged individual, more or less, every single one will go out to that west end spawning site here on Little Cayman during spawning season. And that's why it's such a vulnerable place to overfishing, because you get the entire reproductive stock for the species at that one site.
Right.
And it's vulnerable at that point in time.
Okay, we have another question from Edna Moyle Primary School. How long does it take the grouper to travel from their home reef to the spawning site?
Yeah, faster than you might think. They can travel several tens of kilometers in a like a 6 to 12 hour window of time.
Wow.
So they can circumnavigate. They can go around the entire island of Little Cayman within a day if they want to.
Wow. Okay, from CIS, the question is, how old can grouper get?
We think as much as 30, 35 years for an NASA grouper. They've done some aging work here in the Cayman Islands with the Cayman Islands government. And some of the oldest fish aged were in the ballpark of 25, 30 years.
Wow.
And they get reproductive at about 5 to 7 years of age. So they can go to that spawning site many, many times in their lifetime.
Okay, the next question is from Cayman Prep. Are the groupers not there because water temperature has changed?
Well, that's a great point. It's a good question. One of the hypotheses is because December was such a cold month here in the Cayman Islands, you guys probably remember that. Because it was so cold, maybe they spawned early. Maybe they spawned in December. And that's entirely possible. And it's one of the things that we're looking into. We have temperature loggers all around the island that we have monitoring year-round so we can look at water temperatures. And we can ask that question, but it's certainly a good hypothesis as to why we aren't seeing them at the spawning site right now.
Okay, this next question from CIS can two different types of grouper go to the same aggregation site?
Yeah. Yeah, we have Nassau grouper, as well as yellowfin grouper and black grouper and red hind all go to the spawning site at around the same time. Oh, and tiger grouper.
That's
grouper
right.
Too. Yeah.
Okay, now from CIS, where do groupers hide when they're being chased by predators?
Oh, they hide down in the reef. They're really good at wedging themselves down in the reef. And if you talk to local fishermen, they'll tell you that Nassau grouper are particularly good at getting themselves down into the reef when they get hooked. For instance, it's their go-to defense. They'll slip into a reef crack and they'll wait it out if a predator is coming after them.
Okay, now from Cayman Prep, the question is, how can we help take better care of the groupers?
Well, I think one of the key things to do is let them reproduce when it's time to spawn.
Right.
That's the number one way I think you can make sure you have a healthy population into the future. But that's fish on a reef for people to see, fish on a reef in an ecosystem to maintain balance, and then fish on a reef for people to catch. All those things are important, and they all require reproduction. They all require that you allow them to make new babies when it's time.
All right, Bryce, I think you should come up, and I'm going to switch the camera back to up here, okay?
That sounds good. All right, we'll see you up there, Todd.
Great.
I guess I can talk to you.
We can't hear you, Mr. Todd.
Okay, can you guys hear me now? Still no? Hold on.
A little bit better. A little bit.
What? Yeah? Okay. All right. My apologies for that. Can you guys hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Yes, okay, awesome. Sorry. Tried to switch microphones, couldn't do that. So anyway, Edna Moyle, the reason people like grouper eat grouper is because they're delicious and traditionally have been eaten around the holidays. Island primary. Why do why do uh, why do you do the project just on the Nassau grouper and not on other fish? Well, that's a great question. Um, we started doing this project because we started to realize that the populations of Nassau grouper were decreasing. Fishers around the islands were noticing that there were fewer and fewer Nassau, and that the ones they were catching weren't as big as they used to traditionally catch. And so we realized what was happening was that the the population of Nassau grouper was in steep decline, was really going down. And so we needed to come out here and figure out how we could protect those fish and increase their numbers so that we can continue to have Nassau grouper on the aggregation on into the future. And when I started in 2011 coming out on the project, there was only a couple of thousand fish, maybe 2,000 fish here on Little Cayman at the aggregation site. And now we're seeing over 10,000 fish, which is just a huge success story and something that all Caymanians should be proud of because, you know, that's something that you guys have done. All right, so next question from CIS. How do they know to get cleaned? You know, I'm not sure how they know that. Um, my guess is that they can feel it. They, you know, when they go to the cleaning station, they're getting you know, little bugs that will start to live on them, and dead skin will start to build up on their bodies, and so they'll go and they'll get that cleaned off. You know, we can't actually go ask them that question because oops, because they don't speak to us. But I'm going to actually hand the microphone back over to Dr. Bryce Simmons, who's going to continue answering a couple of your questions just for a few more minutes before we sign off for the day. You want to use mine?
Hi, all folks. It's a little bumpy out here. Hey, I'm going to introduce you to a special scientist here, Dr. Croy McCoy. Dr. Croy McCoy is with the Cayman Islands Department of Environment. I'm going to pass the mic over to him and get him to answer a couple of questions. Dr. McCoy has been involved in this project longer than pretty much any scientist really in the Cayman Islands, or certainly one of the scientists that's involved the longest. He was involved with Nassau Grouper long before we started the Grouper Moon project here and started working with the West End Little Cayman spawning aggregation site. And among other things, Croy grew up on the island of Little Cayman, so he is intricately familiar with the long history that this island has in terms of conservation, fisheries, science, and diving. And I think now I'm dead. I'm not sure if folks can hear me, but I can't hear myself. Okay, I think I'm back on. So I'm going to hand over the mic to Croy McCoy, and maybe he can answer a couple of questions that folks have. Here he is.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Ask him to give you a thumbs
Give
up.
me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh, okay, great. Hi, I'm Croy McCoy. I'm from the BRAC, actually. Attended Spot Bay School, so go Spot Bay.
Go Spot Bay.
And I'm going to try and answer a few of your questions here. But first of all, the Nassau grouper is an iconic species of the Caribbean and upper islands, and it was given me great honor to be part of this whole project and had seen the species rebound from very little Nassau groupers because they're spawning aggregations or like the maternity wards of the ocean. And I've documented over 22 species actually using these same sites at different times over the years. Every month this site is used by a different species of fish to reproduce, and that's why they're so important that we acknowledge that fact and give them room to do their thing to continue their populations around these islands, because they're all of our work show that we're all mixed together with sharing the offspring or the babies, whether it's Cayman Brac, Little Cayman, and Grand. There's all an exchange going on with how the babies settle out and keep the population of not only Nassau grouper but different species going. going to try and answer a few of your questions here. How many eggs do they lay at a time? I would imagine about 1,000,000 eggs per fish. But when we started this project, there was a few hundred fish, and now, especially in Little Cayman, it's about 10,000, and in Brack, it's about 4 or 5,000 fish from a few hundred. That is a huge increase in reproductive effort, you could call it. So with them only laying 1,000,000 and maybe one surviving, of a few hundred to thousands with one surviving, that's a big jump in giving us the advantage of having a sustainable population of our Nassau grouper and other fish. Which question next? As Dr. Simmons, what do groupers eat? What Dr. Simmons mentioned earlier, that they're carnivores. Yes, they are, but they're generalists also, in the meaning that they will eat crustaceans like lobster, crab, octopus, and fish. But it's mainly they're meat eaters, so you can call them a carnivore. And how long do our Nassau groupers live? We did this work way back in the 1980s on aging the Nassau groupers in Grand Cayman by a former colleague, and I think the oldest one that we aged was 29 years old, so they're long-lived species, and it's like 6 years to maturity, I think 6 or 7. So any animal that lives long and reproduces low actually becomes very critical in managing that population to ensure we have a population going forward. And that's part of what drives me on this project, is knowing that I'm contributing to your guys' future, and maybe someday some of you all will pick up the mantle and continue this effort of sustaining our Nassau grouper populations around the islands. You never know. I came from Spot Bay, and look where I'm at. So think about that.
Croy, do you think we could get a few of the other DOE staff members that are with you and maybe introduce them to the kids?
Yeah.
I'm going to
Trying
pull
to.
them in right now. Where's Paul?
I'll get Cody first. I want to introduce a colleague of mine here. This is Cody Panton. He's been working with me over a decade, in particular on this project. You probably see us around the islands all the time doing surveys. And this is Paul Chen, another colleague who's been working also over the last 10 or 15 years on the Nassau Grouper project and around these islands, doing not only fish surveys, but benthos, coral reefs, and because it all operates as one system. And it's great that we are actually trying to keep that balance to make it function, because everything is intricately related to each other. So when a system gets off balance, that's where everything goes amok. Where whether it's you extract too much fish off the reef, or um, the coral reefs are dying because then they don't have habitat. So everything is related, and it's important that we not only protect and manage our fisheries, but also manage our reefs at the same time. This here is Jonathan Ebanks. He joined us a couple of years ago, and he's been working on this project with me since. And next to him is Jonathan Rivers. He's also joined a few years ago and works with me on this project in Little Cayman and Brack and in Grand. So just wanted to introduce some of the crew from the DOE that works on the Nassau Grouper project.
Thank you, Dr. McCoy, so much, you guys. That is all of the time that we have for today. I want to thank everyone that was able to join us. You guys had such wonderful questions. If I didn't get to answer any of your questions, you are welcome. Your teachers can email them to me, or you can post your questions on the blog that we have, which is groupereducation. .edublogs.org. And remember, we will come back on Monday, and hopefully we will have some more answers for the big mystery that's going on this year. Where are those NASA going to spawn? What's going on? All right. Thanks you all so much. I'm gonna turn some of your mics on so that you guys can say hi and hello to everyone out there. Oh, I can't. You're gonna have to unmute yourself. Can you do that? Awesome. Next live stream is on Monday, same time, 10:30. See you all then. Take care. Bye now.